Hey, what's going on, guys? This is TabMock99, and today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most epic video game rivalries of all time. If you thought I meant Mario vs. Sonic, well, you've got another think coming. I'm talking about Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter. It might seem hard to believe now, but back in the 90s, these games were at the top of the charts. Now, at first glance, Mortal Kombat may seem like it's a direct response to Street Fighter. They're both one-on-one fighting games that take place in a 2D arena and mix martial arts with fireballs. But, according to the book Long Live Mortal Kombat by David Craddock, nothing that Boon and Tobias did was created as a direct response to Capcom's game. Mortal Kombat has its own unique tone, set of mechanics, and visual space. Now, if there's anything about Street Fighter that directly influenced the early Mortal Kombat games, it would have been the dizzies. In Street Fighter, whichever character got beaten up fast enough would end up getting dizzy and got set up for a free hit. Well, Ed Boon kind of hated the whole dizzy thing, and he wanted to move that to the end of the match instead.
There was a period at the end of a match where you kind of got a free hit off of your opponent, and we wanted to kind of put an exclamation point on it.
And the fatality kind of came about very naturally from there as an exclamation mark to the end of the match. But it was really much earlier fighting games that truly inspired Mortal Kombat's inception. Games like 1984's Karate Champ and 1990's Pit Fighter. But in the eyes of fans and game magazines alike, it was Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter all the way. There were so many countless gaming magazine covers devoted to the idea of Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter. Fans would even send in their envelope art showing mashups of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter characters together, like this one showing Ryu as Sub-Zero and Ken as Scorpion. Companies selling third-party gamepads and joysticks would sometimes mention Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter by name in an attempt to capitalize on their popularity. The Turbo Touch 360 was probably my favorite one because they advertised Guile from Street Fighter and Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat right in the front of the ad. Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter came together in some other unexpected ways too. Like Malibu Comics getting the rights to publish both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. But what really boggled my mind was the fact that they released an official 3-pack with the silver foil edition of Goro, Prince of Pain #1 and 2 random Street Fighter comics. And it didn't stop there. Even the Street Fighter 4 comic by Udon made a reference to Sub-Zero. Hasbro got the license to do Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat action figures, which were really just a bunch of repurposed overstock G.I. Joe figures. But hey, it was something. And there was the Saturday morning cartoon show on the USA Network, part of the Action Extreme team. Street Fighter had its own animated series, and so did Mortal Kombat. That's right, Street Fighter had its own cartoon series on the same network that aired Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm. And the really crazy part about that was a 4-part crossover event. That's right, this is as close as we've ever gotten to an official Mortal Kombat Street Fighter crossover. See, there was a space Viking voiced by Michael Dorn, whose civilization was going to die without this magical orb. Now his adventures play out across Street Fighter, Savage Dragon, Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, and Wing Commander Academy. Another thing that came out that tied these two franchises together was the Epic Battles trading card game. Yeah, there were official cards based on both Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter characters. Now, if you're into playing card games, Epic Battles is among the best of the best. So while there were those points of connection, there were also plenty of instances where they took jabs at each other, particularly for the home version. Some of the executives at Capcom were worried, saying that if they don't release Street Fighter now and they try to go against Mortal Kombat in the fall, they're going to be in big trouble. They were afraid of the power of what Mortal Kombat was. Acclaim was outspending them and outmarketing them with a much different game than Street Fighter. So their commercial featured a monstrous hand reaching out of the Street Fighter game and absolutely crushing Mortal Kombat. Well, if you know anything about wake-up games, then you know Mortal Kombat was not going to take this lying down. One of the ads for Mortal Kombat featured in magazines and comic books said that Mortal Kombat was earmarked to whip Street Fighter 2 into the pit where has-beens fester. And to add insult to injury, they placed this ad right on the back of the Street Fighter comic. The president of Acclaim even sent the guy at Capcom a letter saying it serves you right. And they didn't stop there. An ad for Mortal Kombat 2 featured a quote that said, "Street Fighter who?" Later on, a magazine ad for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo would refer to Mortal Kombat 2 as Mortal Comedy 2. And they'd refer to Doom 2 as Dumb 2. Now, in the arcade games, they didn't do too much of this direct confrontation. But there is one notable exception. Sometimes before the start of a round, a hidden character would come down and drop a clue. One of the clues given by Jade is Chun-Hu, which is not really much of a clue now that I think about it. John Vogel even went on the internet and shared one of his poems. Roses are red, violets are blue. Street Fighter sucks, I like MK2. Now, taking a jab at the competition once in a while is all well and good, but for the most part, they actually kept it pretty friendly. Like on the screen where it shows the initials for the longest winning streaks, one of the names they featured is Ryu. And they actually included the name Ryu again in Mortal Kombat 2, which I thought was interesting. Part of me wonders if the name of Scorpion's ninja clan, the Shirei Ryu, was a Street Fighter reference. You know how every once in a while in Street Fighter, Ken or Ryu will do a Hadouken that turns red? Well, that's just a glitch. But in Mortal Kombat 2, Johnny Cage every once in a while does a red shadow kick. And that was done deliberately as a reference to Street Fighter. When Mortal Kombat Deception came out, one of the side modes was revealed to be Puzzle Combat, which in some game media was reported as a Tetris type of game, but I knew better. This game was exactly like Super Puzzle Combat 2 Turbo. Even the character Cobra bore more than a passing resemblance to Ken Masters. Some people have looked at the logos and even noticed a similarity with the color scheme, that yellow fading into red, that both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat have. Which could be a deliberate reference, but more than likely, it's just a coincidence. An even bigger coincidence is the Jean-Claude Van Damme connection. See, originally the Mortal Kombat developers thought that a license with Jean-Claude Van Damme would help make the game more marketable. But in the end, when they couldn't get him, they just did their own thing, and the game became a runaway success. Jean-Claude Van Damme would later show up in Street Fighter as Colonel William Guile. It's even more ironic that they made a video game based on Street Fighter the movie, featuring a digitized Jean-Claude Van Damme. Could have been in Mortal Kombat, ended up in Street Fighter. Another coincidence, Robin Shou, who played Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat movie, ended up in a Street Fighter film. In 2009's Street Fighter, The Legend of Chun-Li, Robin Shou was tapped to play Jen, an aging Chinese martial artist and former assassin. But you know, it's kind of funny. Ed Boon's actually been very supportive of Street Fighter. He's been on Twitter talking about how he can't wait to play some Street Fighter 6 and how it's time for Street Fighter and other great fighting games to have their fun in the sun. And I'll never forget how on his website, on noob.com, how he had that picture of Ken versus Scorpion. He's even granted interviews where he's stated that he's open to the idea of a crossover. So if there's any reason that a crossover hasn't happened yet, the holdup is probably on Capcom's end. Now I started this video by talking about the video game crossover of Mario and Sonic, which was really for the younger kids. But look, they got their crossover. They actually did a Mario and Sonic go to the Olympics. But what about us fighting game aficionados? What did we get? Well, we got Marvel vs. Capcom, and we got Mortal Kombat vs. DC. Now think about that for a minute. Mortal Kombat's crossover with DC, Street Fighter's crossover with Marvel. Marvel's crossed over with DC. In fact, Street Fighter's even crossed over with DC, in the sense that DC published that Street Fighter movie adaptation comic. The only things on this list that haven't crossed over with each other is Mortal Kombat and Marvel. Okay, I guess that would be cool too. And Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter. So with almost everything on this list crossing over with each other, I think it's time to close the circle. I think it's time to make a Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter crossover. Well, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to this channel and hit this notification bell so you can get notified every time a new video drops. I also want to give a few shout outs. I want to thank Fatal Cade for making this awesome background you see behind you. I want to thank MK Jasper for giving me a couple ideas, most notably the similarities between the color schemes. And also thank you to MK Habit Addict for doing some research from those gaming magazines. And of course, thank you to Gavin Jasper from Den of Geek, whose article, Street Fighter vs. Mortal Kombat, the many ways the crossover almost happened, served as an inspiration for this video. Until next time, this is Tadmock99 saying, ha 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 ha, get back!